I remember the first time I heard about a 4-day work week, and I was so excited. I was in the military. There's a base that, due to what they had worked with the unions, that they operated on a 4-day work week, and it was at certain times. It kind of bounced around either way, but I remember hearing about it. I thought, man, that was so great. But then the question came up, like, wait a minute, wait, whoa, 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 what happens to like the work they have to do, and if they have meetings with people who are outside of the organization, and all of the questions that we hear time and time again from folks about why they're worried about going to a 4-day work week. I was talking about this and having questions about it back in 2002 when I first heard about it. And the weirdest thing has happened, that more and more people have adopted it, given it a try as a way to, hey, let's see if this thing works, because you can. That's one of the great things about being a business owner. You decide you want to do the thing, well, let's give it a try and see what happens. And what we're finding, and we're going to take a look at an article from Fast Company today, but I've also put together an infographic. I had Claude go do some deep research for me to find more and more information. And we're going to take a look at that as well to show, you know what, this 4-day work week thing it tends to be a win for everyone. Do you have to coordinate a few things? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, it seems like there's goodness across the board. So let's get into it here. Again, for those that don't know, my name is Ryan Howe. I am a business coach and exit planner that works out of West Michigan around the country. I come here live pretty consistently every single day, sharing information I share with my clients, and I hope to earn your subscription. So we're going to start off with Fast Company here. We're going to give this article a quick perusal, hit some of the high points. Then we're going to get into the infographic, because the infographic is what I'm sending to my clients for them, just as a as a high level, hey, here's the stuff that I've been able to find on the old interwebs and piece together in something that they can digest, is something to maybe consider as a way to not just make their work life better for them and their teams. It's also going to be really important for hiring. It's one of those things that we just want to keep in mind here. So 5 reasons why the 4-day work week is a win for everyone. And they've got some anecdotal evidence and interviews with folks who have switched over to 4-day work weeks and what it's done with them. Now, one of the things to keep in mind here is we're just scrolling through. 4-day work week doesn't necessarily mean 32 hours, i.e. like 4 8-hour days. For a lot of companies, you've just moved to 4 10s. So you still get your 40 hours, but you've just condensed it down, right? That's the idea. For others, yeah, they have absolutely dropped it down to 32, but they consider that an FTE, a full-time equivalent, and they make it work. One of the worries that I had on this particularly was how it's going to affect overall jobs, right? Because right now we are in a position where, like, man, we're trying to, so many people are unemployed and they're looking for work, but they can't get hired. If we drop to a 4-day work week, what will that do for jobs? And part of this that they get into is that they may offer opportunities for them to hire more folks. So let's take a look here. The 4-day work week is life-changing for employees between dual earner households, a faster pace and complexity of modern life. Job notes heard over and over that 2 days is not enough to manage life, admin, see family and friends, and recover from the work week. Around the world, levels of stress, burnout, and disengagement remain historically high. It's a big part of why we find the third day off is transformational. That third day off, 3-day weekends, we all love them when we get them, because it's just one more day to recharge. And I think there's some goodness in that, where you're able to do it. Again, the companies that can do a 4-day work week, I'm certain you're going to see people who are going to be more engaged when they're at work and more rested. Mainly just because I've seen how people are when we have 3-day work week, 3-day weekends, right? People coming out of Memorial Day weekend are, yeah, they're just refreshed and they had a good time with friends and family because of that extra day. And that's what I continue to think that's what I continue to believe will be the case. Working less boosts productivity. One of my clients that I work with and one of my business partners in the local coffee shop, we've adopted a phrase that I've used for a while, which is, you can't pour from an empty cup. And this is one of the things that I just see, where the previous generations, they would just work and work and work and work. And if you weren't working, if you weren't busy doing something, you were being lazy, or again, I think lazy, would just stick with that. I think basically just they thought you were lazy. And I was never of that mindset. If there's work to do, let's work. But if there's not work to do, let's not work. It's always been one of those things. Now, again, entrepreneurs and those folks who are grinding and building out something, there's always something to work on. So that's like where the spectrum's at. But for the average employee who has work to do, they do their work. Once they're finished with the work, they don't necessarily need to go and jump on something else if it isn't time. Right? There's a lot of process stuff. And what this comes back to though is that where with my business partner, I tell her specifically, Thursday mornings you don't come in. You need to go do yoga, go do something that's not work related, just to recenter yourself and to refresh yourself. So that way, when she is at work, she is leading and doing the things we need done. She is 100% in, and that's really important. And we see this working less is a thing. It does, and not just productivity, just well-being as a whole. Now, whole organization transformation. Now, this is the other thing here where we do see that um, when you are in the middle of a rat race and just zooming everywhere constantly, and you having to show and do the thing right at work, you're so worried about how things look at work. And again, face is what they call it in the Asian companies, the Asian world. We want to make sure that that's not the case. If you can get away with the appearance of things working well versus actually working well, amazing things happen. That's what you see a lot of the stuff where the organization does transform. You're more concerned about actually producing than looking like you're producing. And then almost all the companies who try it stick with it. There's a very high adoption rate with this just across the board. They are able to, again, produce at an extremely high level. Their folks are in better moods. Customers are happier. The vast majority of businesses do, stick with it. There's some that they go down that road and they find they can't. What they end up doing though is they do like this little hybrid mixture thing where it's rather than they're open for 4 days, they're open for 6 or 7, but everybody's on a 4-day work week, right? And they just bounce the schedules around so they can still maintain their customers because they may have 24/7 stuff they have to work with. Okay, so it isn't like the standard 4 days that's all they're open. What they do is they tend to move to a rotating 4-day work week schedule, which is great. We love those. All right, let's take a look. So I did Claude, right? I promised you we were going to take a look at Claude, and I had Claude do an infographic for me here. If you haven't worked in Claude, it's for Anthropics. It's really great. It's my preferred LLM, AI model to work with. You can have it make these really cool things. Look at does little bouncy things. Anyways, so overview. 35% revenue increase. Now, what I did is I did to go do some deep research, go spend some time looking at the 4-day work week impact and those areas where there's studies that exist, pull all the good, bad, and indifferent data, because my concern was what effect is this going to have on hiring and basically the job market. My worry is that as we lower drop to a 4-day work week, are there going to be less jobs available? Which is, with the number of folks that aren't currently employed, that's the thing that, again, where I'm worrying at. But this is what we have. All right. 35% revenue increase, 55% turnover reduction, which is always great, saves money. Over 50% of companies are interested, and then 67,000 job listings, active 4-day work week positions available. And then this is a preference. Gen Z and millennials, 92% would love the 4-day work week. And then Gen X and baby boomers, 78%. So it's still got a high level of preference that's out there. So there's goodness there. Productivity. This is why I'm sharing this with my clients, folks. This is why I want to have this out here. 77% productivity increase. Workers report a higher productivity, but what I would say, and it shows up in the bottom line, as we looked at earlier with the revenue increase. So it's not just people saying they're more productive. The firm and the bottom line, the financials are showing they're more productive. Productivity boosts in Japan. Again, burnout reduction, 69% burnout reduction, and then job satisfaction at 93%. It just goes up. So you can just see all the goodness that goes on here. Adoption in areas where you're seeing it here. 92% trial success rate, 93% AI-driven company. Yeah. So 80% by the end of 2025, I found this interesting. 80% of businesses are expected to adapt flexible schedules to where they're going to be able to opt for some version of this. I think that number is a bit high, but I would expect it to change. However, 80%, that's a big number. Even if we come in at half that, 40% of businesses to offer that, I think is going to be fantastic. And then we expect this to be well into a high adoption rate of full 4-day work weeks. They expect by 64% is what they're looking at. Here's the timeline. I thought this was pretty interesting. So by 2035, this is where they're talking about 64% of businesses should have 4-day work week be the norm. That's what they're looking at here. 50% of companies open to a 4-day work week this year. And it's just been something that's been happening. Let's take a look real quick on these key insights, and we're going to wrap up here. More full-time jobs. Companies see revenue growth and reduced turnover, leading business expansion and more hiring opportunities. Where I can see that, again, when more people are being productive and they're making more money, that's going to give them more opportunity to reinvest that into personnel and go after more work. If that's the case, I think there's a lot of goodness that can come from this. Now, working for your hours, and they talked about increases productivity. Talent magnet. 66% of employees consider shorter work weeks a decisive factor when evaluating job offers, giving adopters competitive hiring advantage. Not really worried about the AI piece. Talk about the generational and then a global movement. Okay, so it's a really interesting infographic. Again, that is a summary of all the available data that's out there. So bottom line here is that what I'm advising my clients is to identify and find ways to move towards a 4-day work week where you can, where it makes sense. We want to have this be a thing for as many people as possible because of the positive benefits it has on individuals, on the company, on the customers, society as a whole. The other aspect of this, and this is the side of it that they're not talking about in this article, is the economic effect that it has when more people have time off. They spend their time doing more activities, which is going to, again, provide a stabilizing force for the economy, just generate more revenue for many businesses that typically see the seasonality, those bumps, when it comes to during the work week. If we can get more people off, more of the times that are, those businesses that enjoy leisure activity are going to go up. So I'm a big fan of this. I hope to see more of this in the future. I just wanted to put this out here and just as a way to tell businesses, like, listen, it's not something to be afraid of. It's not something you should be worried about. It's something that you really should be actively trying to find ways to implement within your company. So yeah, things that we're looking at here. So with that, again, if you're interested in learning more about how I help business owners build valuable businesses that buyers purchase for high multiples, go ahead down in the description. You'll see a link to the Value Builder assessment. If you're a business owner, it takes like 13 minutes to do the assessment. Go fill it out. You're going to get information about your business and really where it's at and how close it is to be able to be sold. Because one of the issues that I run into time and time again in my business is that business owners are busy working on the job and doing their thing. They're not busy building their business out as an asset to sell. So when they go to sell it, it's not structured correctly. And many times they can't sell it, but when they do sell it, it sells for a lot less than it should. And that's what I help. That's what I help business owners do. All right. So with that, take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.